It began with a quiet request, the kind that travels through assistants and advisors before it ever reaches the person it's meant for. Behind the polished walls of Montecito, Meghan Markle had a very specific vision in her mind, something luxurious, symbolic, and unmistakably hers. Not just a bag, but a declaration. She wanted a custom, one-of-a-kind Birkin from Hermès, the type no one else on earth could carry. The idea wasn't born out of vanity. In her eyes, it was art. Ethical white leather, gold-tinted metalwork, and a soft engraving of a phrase she once used in a speech about empowerment. A reminder of how she wanted to be seen, influential, compassionate, iconic in a new way. The kind of item that enters a room before you do and whispers your story without saying a word. Her team drafted the request carefully, polite, formal, and direct. It was addressed straight to the House of Hermès in Paris, the sanctum of silent luxury. The timing wasn't random. In a few months, Meghan planned to appear at a high-profile charity event in Montecito. In her mind, the custom Birkin would be the perfect symbol of her return to elite society. But on her terms, not the palace's. But what she didn't know was that when you make a request to Hermès, you aren't just asking for leather and craftsmanship. You're knocking on the door of a world that rarely opens for anyone, not for celebrities, not for billionaires, and sometimes not even for royalty. The reply came faster than anyone expected. Polite, elegant, and cutting enough to slice. Through silk, Hermès wrote that the maison does not accept outside creative direction on their heritage pieces, that the identity of the brand is created by the house, not in collaboration with clients. They never said Meghan's name. They didn't need to. The meaning was crystal clear: we don't take design notes, not even from you. Her team pushed back, hoping politeness could become persuasion. Her senior stylist sent a long response explaining how this design could modernize the brand for a new generation. Hours later, another message followed from her personal assistant emphasizing how the customized bag would align with ethical luxury. But Paris didn't write back. Instead, this is where the story shifted from rejection to humiliation. The email thread was allegedly forwarded to a hand-picked circle of fashion editors and insiders. Not tabloids. Not blogs. The powerful people who control the whispers behind runways, the ones who can make or unmake reputations with a single raised eyebrow. It wasn't a leak. It was a lesson. Hermès wasn't just declining her request. They were using it to reinforce the unspoken rule of their world: you don't direct us. Not even if you're a duchess. By midweek, Paris wasn't whispering anymore. It was quietly laughing. Stylists in Milan and London started repeating the same line like it was a secret code. She tried to redesign a religion. Hermès never said her name, but somehow the whole continent knew exactly who was being talked about. The beauty of luxury cruelty is that it never looks messy. It's always graceful, always subtle, and always devastating. For Meghan, the rejection spiraled into something far bigger. It painted her as someone who overstepped, who tried to enter a temple where the doors were closed. And because Hermès never publicly commented, the sting of silence did more damage than any public statement ever could. She became the subject of a story she didn't write, one of refined embarrassment, the kind that cuts deeper than scandal. And before she had a chance to control the narrative, it had already spread everywhere that mattered. Determined to reclaim the spotlight, Meghan decided Paris Fashion Week would be her comeback stage. The front row at Balenciaga. Cameras, lights, glamour. All the perfect ingredients for a triumphant resurrection. But instead of applause, she walked into frost. Insiders said the energy shifted the second she entered. No warm greetings, no excited reactions. Just stiff stares and people stepping aside without stepping too close. Even the photographers seemed strangely disinterested, something unheard of for someone with her level of fame. Then came the backstage whispers, the most brutal part of her story. Members of the glam team began murmuring about an unpleasant scent around her, something strong enough that they kept spraying fragrances to cover it. "You can fix makeup," one person allegedly muttered, "but you can't fix that." It was cruel. Horribly cruel. But cruelty in Paris often drips from couture. By the end of the show, the whispers had grown into something much bigger than the clothes on the runway. People weren't talking about fashion anymore, they were talking about Meghan. And in Paris, bad hygiene is a sin with no forgiveness. To make the humiliation worse, stylists later revealed her entire look wasn't a star treatment at all. It was a last-minute courtesy. The dress was borrowed, the heels loaned, and everything she wore had to be returned with the tags still attached. In the fashion world, gifts mean respect. Loans mean charity. And returning items with tags means you don't belong. By the time Meghan left the building, the room had already delivered its verdict in silence. Leaving the Balenciaga show, Meghan Markle tried to convince herself that the cameras clicking meant something. But Paris had already made its decision. Behind her, the whispers had shifted into full sentences, quiet, sharp, and impossible to ignore. In every hallway, every corner, every luxury lobby she passed, the same message floated behind her steps: Paris was done. Her team tried to soften the night by suggesting a slow drive through the city. Something calming. Something scenic. But the moment Meghan insisted on going through the Pont de l'Alma tunnel, her staff froze. That tunnel wasn't just a landmark. It was the place tied forever to Princess Diana's tragedy. The team called it coincidence. Paris didn't buy that. People who knew Meghan's past said she studied Diana's life obsessively, watched documentaries, replayed interviews, memorized every detail. So choosing that tunnel felt intentional, as if she wanted the world to feel her pain the way it felt Diana's. To insiders, it didn't read as honor. It read as theater, and Paris loathes emotional theater disguised as meaning. Then came the darkest irony. For years, Meghan accused British tabloids of destroying Diana. Yet when the time came to tell her truth, who did she sit with? CBS. The American network that once bought and aired the images of Diana's final moments. Paris didn't see empowerment in that. They saw contradiction, a brand built on victimhood but aligned with those who monetized tragedy, back in fashion houses and editorial rooms. Professionals began re-evaluating everything they once believed about Meghan. The humanitarian speeches. The empowering quotes. The brand of compassion. The elegant CEO image. Suddenly, it all looked less like authenticity and more like a carefully assembled costume. Editors whispered that her public persona borrowed pieces from royal icons and Hollywood legends. The empathy of Princess Diana, the composure of Queen Elizabeth, the glamour of classic film stars. But stitched together, it felt less like inspiration and more like imitation. One Paris editor summed it up cruelly: Paris cherishes originality. It rejects replicas. By morning, images of her leaving the Balenciaga event hit fashion blogs, but the tone was empty. No praise. No excitement. Just neutral captions, as if the industry had politely stepped back from her orbit. A silent unfollow. Her team sensed the shift. Conversations became careful. Assistants avoided eye contact. Stylists exchanged small looks whenever her name came up. Nobody had the courage to say it aloud, but the truth hovered between them. Something fundamental had cracked, but Meghan wasn't preparing to fade. She was planning. She began talking about reinvention the moment she reached Montecito. A new brand. A new identity. Not tied to legacy, royalty, or old narratives, but tied to control. Sources whispered she was working on something sharp, curated, and personal. Something that wasn't about elegance, it was about reclaiming power. Meanwhile, Paris kept whispering too. Don't pull a Meghan, stylists warned their interns and new designers. It became a quiet phrase meaning, don't overstep, don't challenge the house, don't confuse attention with influence. Her name had become a cautionary tale, yet even with the mockery, the city never fully turned away. Scandals don't disappear, they orbit. The same designers who laughed at her still watched her social media. Editors who dismissed her still saved her photos. Fashion houses that whispered about her still monitored her next moves, because the truth was simple: Meghan Markle was unpredictable. She didn't crumble when pushed, she recalculated. By the time she returned to her Montecito home, she wasn't broken. She was studying the silence like it was a map. Paris hadn't ended her story. It had given her a new beginning. She understood something the industry hoped she didn't: people don't remember humiliation forever. But they always remember comebacks. So while Paris dimmed its lights and closed its runways for the night, it didn't erase her. It waited. For the next headline. The next appearance. The next reinvention, because love her or hate her, Meghan Markle wasn't gone, she was rewriting the narrative, and the fashion world knew one thing for sure: the moment she steps out again, cameras will snap, whispers will rise, and the same people who doubted her will wonder if this time she wins.